What's up, YouTube? I'm just hanging out here looking for some more real estate to buy online. If you haven't tuned in before, I'm Joe Cacciapaglia. I'm a real estate investor and agent in San Antonio, Texas. Lately, I've been using this channel to try to share some information on some online sites where you can buy real estate. Recently, I bought, small pieces of properties on Lofty. I've been investing in some notes on Ground Floor a little bit. Um, I'm trying to find a few other sites where this is possible and, where it's possible to take a small amount of money, buy into individual properties, and use some of our real estate knowledge on how to do, proper due diligence in order to hopefully get some outsized returns. As you know, doing those videos, I've been asking for feedback as far as other sites that I should take a look at. One that quite a few people have mentioned is Arrived Homes, and so I spent some time checking it out. I actually want to just share with you why I'm not going to use this platform going forward. First, I'll tell you what I like about it and why it might be right for some of you, but why it's not going to be for me. So Arrived Homes is, and I'll compare it to Lofty because I've talked a lot about Lofty and what I like and don't like about that site, and I think that if you're unfamiliar with that site, I don't think you need that info to understand what I'm talking about, but it'll be a good comparison. But so on here, um, this is a company. They go out and actually purchase these homes in a Series LLC, and that's just basically, at least in Texas, Series LLCs work different everywhere, but I had a Series LLC for my properties here in Texas. Each individual series basically acts as its own LLC. And so that one small entity goes and purchases a property. They sell shares of that to individuals like you and me who just jump on here and buy them. They are the company picks out the properties, puts them on their site, and I'll show you. You can just um, find. You just click on their invest tab. You can find the ones that are currently open. You can see all these ones funded. Once they've been funded, you can't buy those. Those are just done. But you have these coming soon, and then you have a couple that are available right now. Um, so once they actually close on them, they sell out the shares. They operate these. There's a property. They use a third party property manager, but they do basically the asset management. Charge a fee for that. I believe they're taking a piece of the property management fee as well. And then when you look at the documents, they all say they plan to hold between 5 and 7 years and then sell. Um, I like that hold period. I think most of the time when I've held real estate, my maximum returns happen somewhere between 3 and 5 years. 5 and 7 makes sense, especially when you have a lot of fees to overcome. You need a few more years of appreciation. Um, I think that it's, one thing I like about it is it's a group of professionals that are identifying these properties. That's as compared to Lofty, where you have individuals listing their properties on a marketplace, and you can buy pieces of, that are not vetted all by the same group. And so if you start buying properties on Arrived, it's pretty safe to say that, you know, there'd be most of the time, you'd either like them all or you dislike them all. I mean, you might have some geographic preference. Like, I mean, as you can see, um, where do they go? They are very, very geographically diverse. And so you might pick certain states that you want or something. Some may have a little bit higher return than others, but for the most part, they're operating the same thing. Although they do have some short-term rentals and some long-term rentals, and so that's a little bit different. Um, some of the problems that I have with them and why I decided that I'm not even going to experiment with investing with them is a few things. So the first is uh well, let's see. If we look at their financials, they provide, if you look at their anticipated annual cash flow, it's 3.9%. It's a pretty low cash flow, for real estate in general. If I'm getting, if I'm in a high growth area and I expect to get really great um I might take a cash on cash return on a property I buy here in San Antonio that's this low, or maybe even a little bit lower if it's in a spot where I know, okay, I'm going to get really great appreciation here. It's a growing market. There's a lot of reasons to believe that's going to go up. Okay, I can see that. But then, you can look at um, their calculator here and then just see, okay, well, this particular one is in a zip code that's had really strong appreciation. And so if you look at your annualized returns here, though, even with that extremely strong appreciation, you're only getting a 7.1% annualized total return when you look at their cash flow. Uh, that's a pretty meager return. Part of it is, that's unlevered, and they have what I understand is they will decide whether or not to put some leverage on these properties after the fact. But even their levered return it doesn't look great, right? I mean, it's not terrible. I mean, if you can compare this to a stock market return, but that's if you're hoping that your future um, appreciation matches up with what you've had in the last 20 years, which may or may not be the case. Um, but you'd have to do some due diligence on that market, and why that might be. But so it's hard to understand, right? You have great or a strong appreciation that you're assuming. Why are the returns so low, right? And I think that the real answer is because they just have extremely high fees that you have to overcome. So, on this one, you've got your purchase price, 308,000. Now, in that, obviously, you're always going to have some closing costs when you buy a property, um, but they've got closing, offering, and holding costs of 22,000 plus another sourcing fee of 12,000. And so, and I didn't have to do any real research. I mean, they're upfront about this. It's you know, perfectly legitimate. They're trying to make money for the service they're providing. But if you look at that, right, how much is that? 22,712 plus 12,210. Divide that by 308,465. And yeah, you're over 11% of your purchase price in additional fees. Now they're saying closing. Okay, some of these might be your closing costs that you're already going to have. Um, you know, this isn't with a loan, right? They're purchasing these outright, so there really shouldn't be that. Maybe 3% in closing costs on the purchase, and really depending on the market, like here, I'm oftentimes getting the majority of my closing costs covered on a purchase by the seller. And so, most of these are probably have more to do with these offering and holding fees. Um, in addition to that, they charge an asset management fee. I think this is a quarterly fee, right? So it's another, $524 quarterly. It's just a whole lot of money for one single family home to be able to cover, and still get a return that I'd be happy with as a typical real estate investment. Now, obviously, if you don't have access to enough capital to just go buy a whole property, and you're not in a situation where you can house hack, this might be a way that you want to go. But in addition to, not having the best returns, just being the returns I'm pretty okay with, but that's as much as I'm willing to say about it. And that's if you hit all of their assumptions. And, I'd have to actually buy some and hold it for 5 to 7 years to figure out how accurate some of those are. Um, I don't think I don't think that that's like I said. I mean, it might be right for somebody, but definitely not right for me. And I'd much rather go buy some small pieces of somebody else's property on Lofty, or maybe even in there's a lot of downside to even partner with somebody locally and buy properties, right? If I didn't have enough money to buy something similar to one of these on my own. Um, but the other thing is your money is tied up for that 5 to 7 years. This is not a marketplace. It's one of the things I like about Lofty as opposed to here is you can invest in those properties and it's a marketplace, so you can go and sell your pieces later on if you want to. Now, the real downside to that is you might have to sell at a loss. There's not unlimited liquidity, and you're having. I've already talked a lot about Lofty on other videos, and why some of the stuff I don't like about it. But one of the good things on there versus here is that you have just liquidity, where you can, you're not stuck with any certain holding period. You can sell out anytime. And so, the high fees, the low relative returns, and being stuck in each property for 5 to 7 years, for me, just far outweighs the fact that you do have professionals picking and managing these properties, and you do have good geographic diversification. And they are, for the most part, it looks like they're buying, you know, uh, really nice properties, not necessarily what you think of as rental stock most of the time. Um, I think that's really all I'm going to say about it. So out of everything I'm using so far, I'm still by far a fan of ground floor more than anything else. For somebody who's not going to do a lot of due diligence, if you are really someone who's interested in real estate, want to learn about it, and jump into individual properties and look for some opportunities here and there, I think Lofty's a great site for that. Um, Arrived Homes, I'm crossing off my list. Unless something changes, I won't be investing on there. I'm going to talk about a couple others in the next week or so. As I usually mention, I will put the links to the free money to get started on those other two sites that I mentioned, Lofty and Ground Floor. As usual, I'd really appreciate it if you'd like this video. I never remember to ask up front, which I'm supposed to. In any case, that's all I've got to say about this for today. Until next time, I'm going to keep making mistakes so that you don't have to.